Assalamu alaikum. This video about science primary 4 second term. This is the last lesson about unit 1 lesson 4. Lesson 4, the importance of sunlight to living organisms. On lesson 4 we will talk about the importance of sunlight for all the living organisms. At first, sunlight. Sunlight is very important or very necessary for plants and animals and bacteria and fungi. The sunlight is very important, it's very necessary for the plants to make their own food by photosynthesis process. يبقى sunlight it's very important for the plants to make their own food by photosynthesis process. Okay, number 2, sunlight is necessary for some animals because some animals depend on the plants in feeding, like rabbit, like cow. You will see. Sunlight, and also sunlight is necessary for the bacteria and fungi because bacteria and fungi they feed on dead animals and plants. After they dead, bacteria and fungi feed on their body. At first, we will talk about photosynthesis process. What's the meaning by photosynthesis process? It is the special process for the plants. Only plants can make their own food by photosynthesis process. What's the meaning by photosynthesis process? It's the biological process that takes place in the green parts or leaves of a plant to make its own food. Again, what is the meaning? We can define the photosynthesis process as it's a biological process. It's a biological process that takes place or occur in where? In the green parts. في الgreen parts اللي هم مين؟ اللي هم leaves. Green parts that mean takes place in the leaves of the plants to make their own food. Occurs in يبقى photosynthesis process occurs in or takes place in the green parts, especially in leaves. Okay, because the leaves they are the green parts in the plant. To make photosynthesis process, the green plants need sunlight, need carbon dioxide gas, need minerals, need water. Okay, as we see, the green plants need sunlight, carbon dioxide gas, water and mineral salts to make its own food by photosynthesis process to produce sugar, its own food. Okay, plus oxygen. يبقى photosynthesis process takes place in leaves. Leaves need 4 components, 4 required material to make photosynthesis process. They are: number 1, leaves sunlight. تيجي منين؟ leaves absorb sunlight by photosynthesis. Leaves absorb sunlight by chloroplasts or green plastids in their cell. Number 2, leaves absorb carbon dioxide gas from the air. Number 3, roots absorb water and mineral salts from the soil. Again, your photosynthesis process takes place in the leaves. Your leaves to make photosynthesis process, it's need sunlight, carbon dioxide gas, water and mineral salts. Leaves absorb sunlight by chloroplasts or green plastids. Number 2, leaves absorb carbon dioxide gas from the air. Number 3, roots under the ground absorb water and mineral salts from the soil. And from roots give them to stem, and from stem to leaves. يبقى كده leaves are 3 components or 3 required materials to make photosynthesis process react together to produce its own food or plant food that's called sugar or starch and oxygen gas for the rest of the living organism. Okay, يبقى photosynthesis process takes in leaves or occurs in leaves for the green plants, needs sunlight, absorb it by chloroplasts or green plastids. Number 2, green carbon dioxide gas absorb it from the air. Number 3, water and mineral salts, roots absorb them from the soil to react together. Then they react together to produce its own food or plant food اللي هو الستارش or sugar and oxygen gas. يبقى الchloroplasts or green plastids الchloroplasts or green plastids we talked about it in the plant cell in the lesson 3 give the plant its green color. يبقى the reason for making the plant by green color is the presence of what? Of chloroplasts or green plastids. يبقى chloroplasts or green plastids it gave the plant its green color. البلانت روتس قلنا تعمل ايه؟ تعمل transport or absorb للwater. الroots absorb water and mineral salts from the soil and transport water or transport them from the soil to stem and from the stem to leaves to make photosynthesis process. What happens when what will happen when the plants aren't exposed to sunlight for few days, or when we cover? What will happen when we cover the plant? What will happen when we cover the plant? The leaves of the plant becomes yellow and weak. The leaves of the plant becomes yellow and weak because there is no sunlight. Okay? Give reason the potted plant inside our house should be directed to sunlight. Give reason ليه the potted plant inside our house should be directed or exposed to the sunlight. هقوله because the sunlight or light energy it's very necessary for the plants for making its own food or to make their own food by photosynthesis process. Okay, so we can say the sun is the main source of energy for plants. The sun is the main source of energy or light energy for plants. Sun notes. Okay, we have something called iodine solution. Iodine solution is a solution that is used to detect or determine the presence of starch. The iodine solution it is the solution that is used to بعمل بيه iodine solution is used to detect the presence of starch. Detect the presence of starch. Is the starch is found or not found? By what? Because the iodine solution turns or changes the starch into blue. It makes the color of starch into blue. When we have potato and cut it into 2 pieces, okay, add 2 drops or 3 drops of iodine solution to the potato. We know that its color will change from yellow into blue color. Its color will be blue color. Give reason because the iodine solution it change the starch. The potato contains starch. Okay, because the iodine solution it changes the color of starch into blue. Green plants. Okay, in photosynthesis process the green plants use carbon dioxide gas and release oxygen gas. Again, in the photosynthesis process the green plants uses carbon dioxide gas to make photosynthesis process and release or produce oxygen gas. While in respiration process we use the opposite gas. Okay, we use oxygen gas and release or produce carbon dioxide gas. Okay, again, in the photosynthesis process, the green plants use carbon dioxide gas to make photosynthesis process and produce or release oxygen gas. While in respiration process we use oxygen gas and produce carbon dioxide gas. So we can say the green plants it's very necessary for keeping the percentage of oxygen gas and carbon dioxide gas constant in the air. Constant. What's the meaning by constant? Fixed in the air. Okay, because in green plants in the photosynthesis process use carbon and release oxygen, while respiration process we use oxygen and produce carbon. So the green plants make the equation constant is necessary for keeping the percentage of carbon and the carbon dioxide gas and the oxygen gas constant in the air or fixed in the air. Okay, living organisms. Classification of living organisms. We can classify living organisms according to the way of their feeding, what they feed. Okay, we can classify the living organism according to the way of their feeding into producers, consumers, decomposers. The living organisms can be classified into three types according to the way of their feeding into producers, consumers, and decomposers. Producers. Who is producer? Producers are green plants. Consumers, they are the animals that depend on producers in feeding. Number three, decomposers. Decomposers at the end. Okay, they feed on the dead bodies of both of producers and consumers. Okay, let's start. Number one, producers, consumer, decomposers. Number one, producers. We can define producers as they are the living organisms or autotrophic organisms that they can make their own food. Again, what's the meaning by producers? Mean who are producers? They are the living organisms or autotrophic organisms that they can make their own food by themselves. Okay, through the photosynthesis process. Producers, they are the living organisms or autotrophic organisms that can make their own food by themselves through photosynthesis process. يعني اللي هم مين؟ اللي هم الgreen plants. As we said, green plants, they are the only plants that can make their own food, or the only plants that can photosynthesis process. So the producers, they are like what? Like green plants, green algae, okay, and some types of bacteria. Number two, consumers. Definition of consumers, or we can define consumers as they are living organisms that depend on producers by two ways, direct or indirect, to get their food. Again, consumers, they are the living organisms that depend on producers directly or indirectly to get their food. Direct, like cow, eat plants direct, like rabbit, eat plants direct, like deer, eat plants direct, or indirectly like the lion when feed on cow, when like snake after feeding on rabbit, when tiger after feeding on deer. Okay, this is what the meaning by indirectly to get their food. We can define consumers, they are the living organisms that depend on producers by two ways, directly like the cow, deer, rabbit, or indirectly like snake, lion, and tiger to get their food. Merely gave reason. Consumers don't depend on themselves to make their own food. Why they can't make their own food? Only because there is no chloroplasts, or they don't have chloroplasts or green plastids due to the absence of chloroplasts or green plastids. Okay, types of consumers. We said we have two types of consumers. Consumers that feed on or depend on producers directly, like cow, sheep, chicken, human like us when we eat plants, when we eat carrot. Okay, another type هم consumers that feed on another consumer that feed previously on a producers, literally indirectly, like lion, hawk, snake, human like us when we eat chicken that's previously feed on plants. When we eat meat like cow, that's previously feed on a plant. Okay, plants feed on plants. Okay, gave reason. When we said give reason, human is considered as a consumer. Is considered why we can say human is considered as a consumer. Human is a consumer. Give reason, or because human feed on producers or consumers. Feed on producers direct, or consumers, or feeding on consumers that previously feed on a producers. Okay, so can say human is a consumer. Number 3, the third type about living organisms, they are decomposers. Decomposers, they are the living organisms that get their food by what? By decomposing the organic wastes. Who? The organic wastes like dead bodies, plant remains, decayed food. Okay? يبقى مين هما decomposers? Decomposers, they are the living organisms that get their food by decomposing the organic wastes as dead bodies, plant remains, and decayed food. Like bacteria. Bacteria is a yogurt bacteria. Bacteria and fungi. Bacteria like yogurt bacteria. Yogurt bacteria. Number 2, fungi like yeast fungus and bread mold fungus. Okay, but decomposers like bacteria and fungi. Bacteria like what? Like yogurt bacteria in the yogurt. Fungi like yeast fungus and bread mold fungus. Yeast fungus and bread mold fungus. Bread mold fungus decomposes bread. Decomposes, that feed on decomposing bread or feed by decomposing bread. Okay, give reason. Give reason ليه decomposers don't depend on themselves to make their own food for the same reason, because there is no chloroplasts, or because due to the absence of chloroplasts or green plastids. Give reason. Consumers and decomposers can't make their own food. They can't make their own food the same reason, due to the absence of chloroplasts or green plastids, because there is no chloroplast or green plastids. And really gave reason. The bread mold fungus is considered a decomposer. ليه بقول على bread mold fungus is a decomposer? Because it gets its food by what? By decomposing bread. Because it gets its food by decomposing bread. The importance of decomposers. The importance of decomposers, they help us to get rid of importance of decomposer. What's the importance of decomposers? The importance of decomposers, we have three importance of decomposers. For the decomposers, very important. Number 1, decomposers help us to get rid of dead bodies, or the bodies of dead organisms and the plant remains. Okay. Number 2, they increase the soil fertility. Soil fertility. Okay, they increase the soil fertility, make the soil very good. Number 3, they are used in a lot of industry, like yogurt industry. Okay, this is the last slide. We finished lesson 4 about unit 1. Thank you.